we've come to the end of the 7 lectures, and as promised at the beginning, I think there have been a very interesting 7 lectures. We looked at our introduction, we then looked at why ethics in higher education, we went through the trends, we then went into the more specific areas of teaching and learning, research, community engagement, and you and Avni then touched on the issues of data privacy. My concern with it, though, is, and I'm not sure if you share it, is we looked at the why, we looked a little bit at the what. I'm worried that we didn't touch enough on the how. Do you think that's a gap?
I was scared when we started this journey. I was scared that there may have been an expectation that we would provide sort of recipes that is true, or that would be true of all contexts, whether it's private higher education, public higher education in China, South Africa, America. So I was scared that our participants would sort of expect a list of bullets to do. This is what you can include where. My personal approach, and I think we were successful with regard to that, was to open spaces, to say, but have you thought of that? Have you considered this? And especially, I think we're very privileged to speak from a global south perspective. We experience a world of justice and injustice and social justice in the context of Africa very different. And we have very recent experiences. So possibly we look differently at ethics than other contexts. So I think in response, yes, we may not have covered the what should we do now. But I think more important for me was to say, let's think differently about ethics. These are the issues as the contexts have changed from paper-based, going digital in scholarship, to communities talking back to higher education. I think it was important that we say, have you considered these issues? And these are the questions.
Yeah, now that you said, and I think that's what makes it different, and the interesting part is hopefully the listeners are going to start thinking within their specific areas, their regional or country spaces. And if the listeners have in fact done the earlier modules, if I look back at the thread of the modules, then I think the issues of the how probably will also, if you add together what they've learned and integrate it with this, I'm now happy. I think we've got a holistic picture. The issue that I liked particularly is the way in which data has been foregrounded. This space is a very data-rich space, and from an ethics point of view, you could do so much good with the data, but there's also room for unethical practice.
I agree with you. I think the new media consortium's Horizon report have now, for the last 5 years, I think, pointed to the fact that learning analytics and student data is becoming increasingly important. And while ethics has been part of humanity since the early days, pre-Plato, we have considered what is the right thing to do. Suddenly the issue of the digital environment and our access to data and student privacy is becoming a very pertinent issue. And I think with regard to that, all the other topics that we've raised in this lecture actually comes to the head or to summation in our last lecture on data privacy, that we say, this is really thorny, and our current regulatory environments really don't provide us enough guidelines. There's some really thorny issues out there.
And you know what is interesting there is, if you look at it in that perspective, you find that ethics is not a standalone in higher education. It's part of everything that we do every day, all our activities. It's integrated into the whole higher education picture.
And I think that we achieved. We may have missed some gaps in this lecture series, but I hope we've sort of shown our audience, and in our discussions we've reached a point where they could see that ethics is not the the forms we fill in. And ethics is much more than just our policy environment or our objectives and our performance agreements and criteria. Ethics is alive, it's dynamic, it's responsive to a context. And we often find ourselves that despite all our policies and regulatory environments and our performance indicators, we're suddenly in a context that we must make a decision.
Yeah.
And we hope to make an ethical decision, and then we're suddenly at loss.
And it's not just the leaders who make that ethical,
Yes.
it's all of us.
Oh, yes.
So, I think we've achieved it. I think high five.
I think so.
Well done. Thanks,
Thank
Paul.
you. Thanks, Sylvia.